Vegas Around Town, episode 3. It's the podcast. I have Natalie Feriante-Hill. We're going to do Goddess Brain Talk. She owns her own business. She made her way out here via the CBD convention circuit. We're going to talk the power of the mind, power of positive habits, thought, just a super Namaste episode.
Namaste. Welcome
to the podcast, Natalie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to start off with something a little different because you had off camera said something about your daughter going through an amazing procedure.
Well, I hope she doesn't kill me, but I won't reveal which one. I do have 3. When she was actually in, I think it was 3rd grade, I started to notice with her teachers. I mean, I had noticed before, but, just being young, kids develop at different rates. And so she was having some problems with learning and just even, simple tasks. And so I went into, counseling and things like that to try to help her. She was having emotional ups and downs, and she was, clean your room and she'd fall apart on the floor. And it was just really interfering with her productivity and her happiness. We went into a counseling center and they were doing counseling, and they said, hey, we have this other thing that we can do that might be helpful for your daughter. And it's called Neurofeedback. Have you heard of it? And I said, I've never heard of that. It sounds kind of like maybe junk science or, but I'll try it, because they were trying to push, medication, and I'm more of a natural mentality. Mm-hmm. And I worry that she'll be addicted to it her whole life, or how will it change her development of her brain, and is that healthy? And so we did it. They hooked this cap up to her head, and it had all these sensors on it, and put this greasy stuff, like Vaseline or something to connect. Oh. And they,
was this here?
No, this was in Utah.
Okay.
And, the first thing they did was they do a brain reading scan. I forgot what it's called. It's kind of like an EKG, but it's, I don't know exactly. It's for your brain. And they did some tests to see how different parts of the brain are functioning and if they're doing it properly. And when you have your eyes open, your brain should be doing certain things. And when you close your eyes, everything kind of settles down. So you have things kind of firing off, and then you close your eyes and it's like signal to your brain, okay, time to be calm. But what was funny was with hers, when she closed her eyes, nothing changed, and her brain just kept going. Mm-hmm. And so, she had trouble sleeping, and it was interesting to see that. And I thought, oh, wow, this must be why. Even when we do family prayer, she'd keep her eyes open. I always thought, this is so weird. Why does she's being, defiant or something, but actually it didn't make a difference for her whether her eyes were open or closed. Her brain was just going. And there's kind of a rhythm to the wiring in your brain. It should be going kind of in a rhythm. But with her, it was just like chaos. It was, when they would try to trigger one part of the brain, all the other noise in the other part of the brain were just kind of firing off. And
how are they seeing this through?
Yeah. So they scan the brain waves.
Oh, yes, so you're looking at these waves?
Right. So they showed me after this test all these different sheets of paper with all these different waves saying this is a normal line and this is what your daughter's brain is doing. And they had maybe 20 frames. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at it, it just looks like, I have no idea. It just looks like lines, charts or something. But they tried to explain it to me. They said, basically, the blue line is what you should be doing and the red line is what she's doing. And her brain was just too active. Mm-hmm. And so to do a simple task, it's like going to a rock concert and trying to, perform a task in quiet, like study or something, or take mm-hmm. a test. There's just too much going on. And so the way that they trained her brain was have her wear that cap, watch a show, and as long as she's focused, they were monitoring, as long as she was focusing on the show, then the movie would continue. And in the minute she looked away or lost focus, it would stop. So
her brain made the movie play, basically.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah. So it was cool. And over about the course of 3 months, she was able to
just 3 months
quiet her brain and retrain the connections through that therapy. And they did several things that I couldn't describe to you because it was over my head mm-hmm. at the time. I mean, still is. But they explained it to me. Basically, they're retraining her brain, and they were training it to fire at a more rhythmic pulsing. And quieting parts that weren't supposed to be noisy during different activities. And so it was sort of like a 180. It was really amazing. People said, well, what medicine do you have her on? Like the medicine's really working. And, when I heard the teachers who had no idea what we're doing say that, I thought, oh, wow, this is really working. So that was really like a defining moment for me, because I've always been really interested in like health and well-being and natural health and well-being. We rely so much on like synthetic things and out of our body things. And I believe so much in just like when your body's getting what it needs and to function properly,
it's working properly.
You don't need those other things. Yeah.
I went through, that's amazing, by the way. Were you guys just like, this is awesome? Yeah.
And so actually I had 2 of my other kids do it too. And,
wow.
And it's something where, they need to do it again every year or so and to get it back on track. But it's not like a thing you have to do constantly. So.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in just, because I think we talked about just how repetition can change your brain and your habits and all that stuff. I kind of went through something similar with when I had, I still kind of have ADHD where I'm fidgeting. Like right now, my legs are like just fidgeting. I was like 26 and I like couldn't hold a conversation. Like this is like leaps and bounds, by the way. Before, my hands are sweaty, but like I had written, and I was already in the post-production industry and I had to talk to clients, and I felt myself just like all over the place too, right? Also was suffering from like, addiction, like alcohol addiction, all that probably didn't help. So, but the way I fixed it, even though I was still kind of like a functioning alcoholic, was I didn't have tattoos yet. So I wrote on a Sharpie every day, focus. So when I would type, I just looked down, and it would just make me like, it would just retrain my brain to not focus basically and not interrupt. Yeah. I guess.
Well, I like to think about it this way, that everyone was designed differently and it's actually a strength. And, I would tell my daughter this and she'd be like, oh yeah, Mom, you're going to tell like a fat daughter that she's not fat, by the way, but that she's beautiful because you're the mom. Like you have to say that. I'm like, no, I'm serious. You are special because your brain works different. Like everyone is different. And, because regular school and the way that that operates doesn't work well with you, you're always going to have a different perspective than other people. And that gives you this other vantage point that's actually, I think it's artistic people, they see things differently and then people are just amazed. Like, how did you,
is she artistic?
I didn't see that. She's very artistic. Yeah. But what I was going to say, you said.
Does she, let me ask you this. Does she does she have a hard time reading?
So she did. She did because what her main thing was comprehension. So she would read things or hear things and then it would get all jumbled up like a blender. And it was, she was diagnosed with ADHD, but there was a more complex like diagnosis later on with more things specific to her. That's kind of a general thing. Doesn't look the same with everyone, but yeah, so she would get information like, make sure you come to parent-teacher meeting before 3 because I'm leaving at 3. And then she would come home and say, Mom, we have to go at 3. We have to be there at 3 instead of coming before. And, things like that. And so she would
I'm kind of like, it's like dyslexia a little, right? Like when you're just confusing things.
I think of it this way.
I think I'm kind of still like that though.
Yeah. I think of it this way. Like my brother Jerem, like I used to say there's like a file cabinet in his brain where he can just be like, oh, let me retrieve this information about what I learned in like 3rd grade in science, and he takes it out and it's very neat. And she has, it's more like her bedroom where like there's all those files, but they're just like scattered all over the floor. And she's like, oh, I think it's here somewhere. And, some days she finds it and some days she doesn't. So she would learn math and then do great. And we're like, oh, this is amazing. And then the next day it's like, she's never heard it before. And I think stress actually adds to that. And you know what you said about addiction, like, oh, that didn't help. Well, I believe, and I've heard different TED Talks and things about how addiction actually follows, with people who have like some type of behavioral or emotional or physical thing that's not quite right. It's like self-medication. Maybe it slows you down and it helps you focus or it helps soothe that thing. So I think addiction, sometimes people think like, oh, their problems come from addiction, but actually I think they had an issue and it guided them to addiction to try to self-medicate.
Yeah, definitely in my case, for sure. I think my dad had just passed away and I was like totally in denial about it. And so I kept drinking for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At
So
that point,
my roommate called
helping.
me, you're self-medicating, but I was just kind of a mess in my head,
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's cool that you were able to be self-aware enough to be like, okay, I want to change this and I can,
Well, I mean, it took a long time to get sober, probably 2-3 years of just like,
I think it's really cool when someone takes it to like the next level, and it's a beautiful thing when someone discovers what it is that they were designed to do, that like uniquely them, and that they're so good at it. And then they just like run with it. And, sometimes people are like, oh, well, these are my dreams. And like, I need to stop thinking about my dreams. I need to do this work. And I'm like, no, like if you have that desire inside of you, that's what you're supposed to do.
You can be productive without doing something.
Right. You could be very busy all day and not feel like you accomplish a ton, but still things are happening, and it's a lot of it's internal work, just, I think that one of our biggest struggles as human beings is just like coming to terms with who we are and loving ourselves and not trying to be what the world expects of us. Like that really gets in the way. And, I sometimes have to remind myself, like, I don't have to be, successful for the world. I don't have to be on some timeline. I can do me at my pace.
That's so true. It's because it's when you start comparing is when you kind of get lost or you get distracted. Grass is always greener type of thing.
Away. Yeah.
Yeah.
The grass is greener where you water it.
That's cool. I like that. Yeah. So let's segue into the health stuff, cause that's kind of goes hand in hand, right? Doesn't it?
Yeah, totally. I feel like, people spend so much time and money on the physical side, going to the gym or making themselves look and appear beautiful. And we just neglect that emotional and that spiritual side. And we're multifaceted beings. We can't just serve one thing. And, you'll see people, they're like, they're so healthy. How did they get cancer, or how did they get this other disease? They seem so well, or back problems or whatever. And I really do believe that there's a connection, that if one part of you is not well, the other parts of you will eventually suffer. When I'm exercising, oftentimes I'm listening to like an inspirational podcast or a book that I wanted to read, and I'm trying to learn, and people are probably like jamming out, listening to rock or something. And I'm over there like listening to some motivational speaker, Jim Rohn or something. Or
right. Well, because you're always learning, because your brain's also hungry.
Yeah. And it just feels good. And then, just eating healthy food, because I feel like food has an energy too. Like there's a Chinese, way of thinking was like the yin and the yang, and they talk about different foods that are yin and yang, and some give you energy and some make you tired. And, it's important, you can only have I don't think that you should restrict yourself to the point of like unhappiness, because food brings happiness, right?
Of course. Yeah.
But
anything in excess, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can abuse anything basically.
People can go through, you can have parallel lives. You can have people that have the same job, and you can have one person that's miserable and one person that's super happy.
Yeah.
And I think that so much of our experiences, we think like, oh, stuff happens to us and that's why we feel this way. But no, I think the emotions are created by how you think about what you are experiencing. And, if you think things are happening to me, there's no power in that. Right. But if you think like, okay, well, I'm going to be an observer, and I'm going to see, okay, this happened, and how do I feel about it? Okay, well, it happened, I didn't really like it, or it's great, whatever it is you feel about it. But like, this is not defining the rest of my life. This is just a moment. And, maybe it's like a sore muscle. It's like, okay, it goes away.
Yeah. And then you got to be tricky about the whole, amplifying a certain moment, because sometimes you just go, look, that's just a moment. It just happens. Like it's a bad moment, good moment. Do you want to talk about how you even got to Vegas?
Sure.
Should we
talk about that?
Talk about the Vegas CBD convention and the circuit? So how did you get over here?
Well, I was born in California, lived in Utah and Idaho. After I got married, and at the time that I was living in in Utah, about 8 years ago, we kind of got introduced to, when I was then with my then husband, to the idea of hemp oil. And, there's THC and there's CBD, and they are from the same cannabis plant, but they, THC gets you high where CBD doesn't. And he wanted to do the hemp side of it. And I was just like, absolutely not. Like, we're not potheads. Like, I'll get, like, everyone will, like, call me out, and it'll be embarrassing. And like, that just seems, it's just the way that we were raised to think of it, that it was wrong and that there wasn't health benefits. It's so bad for you. Why would you want to do that? And he said, well, just go research, go look at it. And so I did. And I was amazed. I was actually like, oh my gosh, we need to let the world know about this. Like this, had this misconception. You have an endocannabinoid system. And
what does that mean?
That is one of your systems that receives, like you have different, neurological system and cardiovascular, and you have all different systems of your body that do different things. And this is your endocannabinoid system. It's designed to receive cannabinoids, and you get cannabinoids in like black pepper and echinacea and even mother's breast milk. And but the one substance on the earth that we know of that has the highest concentration is cannabis.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And so when back, in the last couple hundred years ago, before hemp was, not legal anymore, there were farmers growing it, and they would feed it to cattle. And so you would get it in your meat, you would get it in your milk. And a lot of neurological diseases are very served by having cannabinoids. So you see things like epilepsy and Parkinson's, and those have a significant and immediate effect when they take, THC or CBD or cannabinoids, or basically marijuana or hemp. When they take those supplements, that has an immediate effect. And the thing that really got me was there was these 5 brothers, and they made Charlotte's Web for a little girl, which they bred this strain to have very low THC and very high CBD. This little girl, their parents were desperate. It was still not totally legal at this time, but it was this up and coming thing, and people were desperate for it. And so they went ahead and did it, even though they could get in trouble with their doctor because he was treating her, and this wasn't the norm. And
what year was this?
This was probably about, I want to say like 7 years ago.
Yeah. So
I don't know exactly, but right around then, 7 or 8 years ago. And they'd been doing it, and they made this oil for her, and she went from having 100 seizures a day to having 1 or none.
Wow.
And what happens when you have seizures is it totally deteriorates the brain so that her function, she would just be like a drooling, mess.
My dad used to have seizures. He had an epilepsy, and I remember like a terrifying moment when I was in Long Beach. I was like 12 or 13, and he had one while he was driving.
Oh my gosh.
And so I remember being a kid, grabbing the wheel on the freeway. This is on the freeway in California. So cars are like, vroom, vroom, vroom. And I grabbed his thing, and I was like trying to calm him down and steering it to the emergency lane. But for some reason, he was able to brake, and I think he was aware that it was happening. He was fighting it, and I'm like, as a kid, just like pulling him over.
Oh my gosh, how old were you?
12, 13.
That's so frightening.
It was super scary, yeah. And then he would do it also in the middle of the night. He would just barge into, like, he needed a walk. Like he was trying to fight it, right? So it was like mild epilepsy. I think he got it from the Navy. He hit his head or something like that. But he would just wake up, and it would just have these episodes. And it was, as a kid, I'm just watching my dad just like having it.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I mean, he would have definitely benefited from CBD. And, people who have cancer, there's also studies that are showing that it kills or attacks turmeric cancer. And, actually the government has a patent on CBD oil that's to keep other people. They don't enforce it now, but I believe it was to suppress and keep people from actually being able to legally ever do it. And it wasn't until 2016 where the Farm Bill became, where Trump made cannabis, and it made hemp federally legal, CBD.
But how did you get into it?
So the way that I got into it was...
You're doing research, right?
I did this research, and then, we went ahead and we did do one of the items of the business that he was involved in doing marketing and stuff was with that. And then we decided to kind of, hey, well, they weren't focusing on it, so we wanted to go and do that. fully on our own. And he could recognize like, this is kind of groundbreaking. We're getting it at the floor level, and it's going to take off, and it's going to be really impactful. And so we got involved in it, and then we moved to Idaho, and then we were there, and it's still not totally federally legal there. They have some restrictions, and I just didn't feel comfortable being there. Plus I was tired of shoveling snow, and I was like, I want to be somewhere that's like a vacation location where people come to me and not like, hey, you're too far away. Plus I have to take another leg to get to you, and like no one comes. And so I was like, I want to be somewhere warm. I don't want to shovel snow. I want to go to shows like any night of the week that I feel like. And also I want to be somewhere where like, instead of flying to the conventions, some of the biggest conventions for our CBD in the world are here. There's several places that have them, but 5 or 10 major ones happen every year. And
that many, huh?
Yeah. So there's like MJ BizCon. There's like, USA CBD, there's.
Did you do all those? Were you like, did you guys have a business and you were?
We've been involved. I personally have gone to a few of them myself. Before I started my business, I was supporting him and being involved and just learning. I was watching and learning. I got to see kind of the whole thing evolve. We built a business and then we sold it. And then, we're no longer together. And I decided, hey, I want to do my own thing. I kind of know this stuff, and it comes along the lines, it follows along the lines of like my values and my core interests of health and wellness, mind, body, soul. And I thought, this is one of the things, that I want to do. And so, coming here was kind of, the reason why was because it was just more convenient for a lot of reasons and for the business. And, still, it's nice. It's nice to be here. There's lots of like-minded people who understand, because trying to explain it to people who don't really know, like I
think it's a party city.
It's funny, people are starting to learn about it more now, but especially like in my faith and my church, people are like, oh my gosh, you're going to get in trouble. I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, go learn.
It's pretty chill here. It's a chill city.
Yeah.
So then I think you gotta come back when you're ready. When you're, ready to launch.
Yeah, it's coming up.
And we'll talk some marketing stuff afterwards.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That's it. This is episode 3 with Natalie Feriante-Hill.
Yay.